Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Doxey, and I'm the Marketing and Events Coordinator here at Hornbill. I'd like to welcome and thank you for joining today's webinar, where we'll be having a presentation on simplifying the challenges of modern ITSM with Connor Hamilton, Product Specialist, and Stuart McCready, Senior Sector Manager here at Hornbill. Just to inform you, Delegate Auto will be muted during the presentation to help facilitate flow and timekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the GoToMeeting questions facility on the right-hand side of your screen. We will collate questions and answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you for taking the time to attend. I will now pass it over to Connor and Stuart.
Thanks very much, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Stuart McCready from Hornbill, obviously, and I'm just going to take you through a little preview before Connor does the interesting bit of the demo. So without further ado, just to the point of explaining how we came to Service Manager as the product you're going to look at today. So over 20 odd years in the business with our traditional on-premise tool support works, we've looked at the key challenges of delivering modern IT service management, and we've learned quite a lot from that, from ourselves and obviously talking to customers and people in the marketplace. So some of the key challenges that we've discovered in looking at that are around things like upgrades, for example. And what tends to happen is that people spend a lot of money on support and maintenance, and they never sometimes get round to actually applying the upgrades because it's too busy, they just don't have time to do it, it's expensive to do it, and effectively what happens is the longer you leave it, the wider the gap is between the product that you actually bought and what you actually end up running with on a day-to-day basis. So again, that works out expensive for people to use the software. In any software environment, not just IT service management, customization is inevitable. So you're never going to have 100% fit. Some are a better fit than others. But the more you customize your solution to get what you want, the harder it is to support. And again, the bigger the gap becomes. And the further away you get from the out-of-the-box environment, then the difficulty is increased on upgrading. And when you do upgrade, typically you then need to reapply all these customizations. So again, hopefully you're getting the picture here that all becomes extra work, it's costly, it's not really user-friendly. Complexity as well. Traditional tools tend to be a bit more complex just because of the nature of how they were built. And again, the more customizations you make, the more complex it becomes. What you end up finding is that you need more people in-house from an admin perspective. Training's time-consuming and quite costly. People leave because that's what they do in their job life. They go somewhere else for the right reasons. So you end up with no in-house experts, so complexities evolve. So really all that comes about is the usability is impaired. So the solution might be very powerful, but it's not particularly intuitive, perhaps, based on today's standards. I mean, people coming into business life in these days are used to doing everything off a phone and, you know, having apps that are intuitive, it tells them what to do, they don't have to go looking for it. They typically, and in traditional IT service management tools, the second point here is very valid. You have to go outside the solution to find answers. You can't communicate effectively with your colleagues unless it's via email or unless you're doing things sitting to the chap next to you and asking them a question, but all of that information is lost. We call that tacit knowledge, and it's lost to the tool. So because all that information is not always there, you know, generating meaningful information can be difficult. So the idea here is all these four issues that we've highlighted all add up to a constant requirement to drive up the cost of ownership. There's nothing easy. You don't know what you're going to spend over the years, and there are hidden costs from what we've just discussed. So we took all that on board and we thought, right, let's do something about that. So here's our traditional light bulb moment, if you like. And we've built this new platform around the whole collaboration idea. So we have a collaborative platform, and you know, if you're used to using things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, you got these things pushed at you, things that are relevant to you, things that you need to know and things that you want to know. I think I said irrelevant there. What I meant was relevant for obvious reasons. So that information is coming at you based on the role that you do in the business. You don't have to go and find it. So the collaborative idea was to build a platform that we could then put a line of business applications over and above. So what you're going to see when Connor does the demo is the collaborative platform, and we're going to focus very much on Service Manager, which is the top right icon in that top tile. But the idea is that there are other apps that you can download and subscribe to onto that platform. So as we grow the offering, there'll be more and more apps appearing. But today we're going to focus very much on Service Manager and look at how we use that for IT service management. So the other innovative side of it, with the collaboration perspective on that platform, is that the idea is you can share knowledge anywhere. You can collaborate globally. This can work in multiple languages. You can work anywhere, so you're not tied to your desk. You can be out and about. And hopefully the whole goal of these three things are going to sum up to boost productivity, not only for you as a user, but for your customers as well. So taking that collaborative approach, effective communication from anywhere in the world, as I said, coming in from a tablet on the left-hand side, a mobile phone in the middle perhaps, or just a browser if you aren't happen to be at your desk or working at home or wherever. We have native apps for iOS and Android, so the guys, if they're out and about, can do all their day job from their phone or their tablet without actually coming in on a browser to the actual toolkit itself. Finally, I don't speak these languages, but that basically means you can talk in any language anywhere in the world, and the tool's got live conversions in it to actually translate. So the analysts can be working in their native language in their native country, or indeed in a different country, and everybody can benefit from that collaborative knowledge that these people input to the tool. I mentioned tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. The idea of tacit knowledge is all the stuff that traditionally sits outside the tool. You know, Connor's sitting beside me in this webinar at the moment. If I have a question about something, I'd probably ask him. I wouldn't log a ticket on the system perhaps, but traditionally that information is just between Connor and I, and it's not held in the tool. But we'll show you in the demo how that information can go into the tool. But you've also got the concept of explicit knowledge, which would be things like frequently asked questions or documents or document libraries that you might want to share with different roles or different teams within your business. So the idea there is that the whole toolkit, if you like, of Service Manager becomes one big knowledge base, because all that tacit knowledge is actually captured in the tool through live conversations and workspaces. So we'll cover that in a bit of detail later. So just before we go on to the demo, something very key. This is very much a software as a service environment. It is a continuously deployed, real, true cloud service, not a same old SaaS as we've started to call it, whereby it's just an on-premise tool that happens to be put in the cloud somewhere. This is delivered as a true service. So all the stuff I spoke about earlier about upgrades and not being able to do them, all that goes away. There are no costly upgrades, no complex upgrades, there's no upgrades at all, they're all automatic. You're always on the latest version of the tool, as it says there. So it's like using an app on your phone. You look at it the next day and it's got all the latest features on it. So you're always up to date, you're always in the current version, no service disruption, and you basically, anything that you customize keeps on working in the tool. So what you've got there is, you don't need to worry about the back end. Everything that you do is actually geared towards supporting your customer, not worrying about the infrastructure behind the scenes, because we do all that for you as part of the service. That's all I was going to mention at the minute. I'm going to hand over to Connor now to look at the demo, and I'll come back a little bit later just to summarise and explain a bit more about implementation and things like that. So Connor, over to you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Good morning, everyone. And today we are going to have a look at three sides of Service Manager. If you haven't seen Service Manager before, you are in for a treat. The first side we're going to look at is the self-service portal. So we're seeing the system from the eyes of an end user. And then we're going to flip over and have a look at the analyst view. And then finally we're going to have a look at the administrative view. Now, as Stu mentioned earlier, this is a true SaaS system. So in this case, we're accessing it through Chrome. And I'm logged in as a customer by the name of Steve Robinson. The first thing that Steve is seeing is bulletins flashing across the top, and we have 4 tiled icons to list all the services that Steve is subscribed to. Now, as you may expect, as we are a cloud system, we fully support single sign-on. We can customize the portal for your end users with your company logo or particular colors or tiles or whatever the situation may be. And all of this is created codelessly, so you don't need to know any technical knowledge to be able to set that up. As I mentioned, we have 4 different tiles, so going from right to left, we have all the services that Steve is subscribed to. Now, this is the logged in user that we are seeing these subscriptions for. Each user may potentially have their own tailored view depending on their subscriptions. Any impacted services, you as a service desk can let customers know that a particular service is impacted, and you can put a note against that impacted icon to say we will have an update here at 4 o'clock, for example, as it is with a home working service. Any active requests that this particular customer has logged against any of these services is shown in the number in the top right of each service. And then if the customer wants to add their favourites, they absolutely can. At the top, we have bulletins, context-sensitive bulletins flashing across the page. And these are obviously only relevant to the services that the logged-in user is subscribed to. So there's a notice to say the link issues, there's a problem with external calls, there's a problem with the VPN access. Now, I mentioned that this is for the business end user because Service Manager is equally at home with IT as it is with other areas of the business, such as HR, finance, marketing, whatever the situation might be, or it can work side by side seamlessly without the need for customization or heavy filtering. So now I'm logged in as Steve. If we think of a hypothetical situation, Steve is working from home, as most of us do nowadays, and Steve is trying to access something on the company network, but for some reason he can't connect to his VPN. So we can go through all my services, and we know that the home working service is there, and if we click into that, straight away there is a known issue. Obviously Steve is finding that at the moment, and there is a bulletin to say that the service is currently impacted, an issue with our VPN client has been identified. So the service desk is pushing information to the self-service portal to let customers know that there is an issue before the customers let the service desk know that they're having a problem. As such, a known issue has been published to the self-service portal. Steve, as I just mentioned, in this particular situation, is unable to connect Steve's laptop to the VPN. So straight away, we have a Me Too button on the right-hand side. So rather than going through and logging a ticket for something that the service desk knows is already an issue, Steve can simply add himself as a connection to this known issue, so that Steve will then be included in any communication about this particular known issue, and the service desk can see that Steve is one of the many customers experiencing this particular problem as well. Rather than getting in touch with the service desk again, the service desk can publish a workaround for this particular known issue to the self-service portal. So Steve has an option to try this to see if it will resolve his problem. If that isn't his particular issue, or he's after some further information, self-help in this case, he can come in and the service desk can publish frequently asked questions, whether this be in the form of videos, text, hyperlinks, just further information to try and get customers to help themselves before they get in touch with the service desk. Any existing requests that have been made by this customer against this service will be shown under the Request tab, and then on the Make a Request tab, the service desk has split out the offering for this particular service into 3 category items. We can schedule a callback, so we can arrange for one of the support teams to give Steve a call back. We can request a VPN client setup if we haven't got one set up, but in this case Steve has one set up and we cannot access the company's network. So Steve wants to get in touch. This is a very quick and easy way of getting in touch with the service desk, and he can come in and say, cannot connect. Oops. So very, very quick and easy. Anybody should be able to use this with minimal training required, well, hardly any training required. We also have the option to link a particular CI that Steve is experiencing the problem with. We have a breadcrumb trail on the right-hand side with a brief validation so Steve can see what he's been asked and what he's answered. In this case, his VPN problem is to do with the laptop. He's trying to connect his laptop. So we'll add the laptop to the ticket. We'll hit finish, and we are given a reference number We've prefixed this with IN because it's an incident, and we have the heads-up display to clearly label how far through this particular fulfillment process we are. Now, this is your fulfillment process. This is very, very easy to set up, and I'll come on to this in a second. So we can see, or the customer, Steve in this case, can see that we have already assigned the ticket and we sent an email confirmation, and we're in the second stage of the process. We need to investigate and resolve this particular issue. All of the details are on the one page in chronological order, and if Steve needs to send an update or attach a file, he can easily do so in the update button boxes there. So that is the self-service side of things. I'm going to flip over to the analyst side of things. Again, I'm using Chrome in this particular situation. I'm logged in as Graham. Now, Graham is a service desk analyst, and he has an interest in various aspects of the service desk. When he first logs in, we see his news feed. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, but before I go on to where the services are configured, I just wanted to draw your attention to the notifications in the top right to show that Steve has a notification to show that that particular incident we just logged as Steve is popping up in his notifications queue. Graham can receive this on his mobile application or potentially email if you wanted to, and we can click into that directly. Before I get into the incident, I just want to show you where the services that we just saw on the self-service portal are configured. So I'm going to go into the Service Manager application. We're going to focus on the home working service that we just logged the ticket through. So this is the service configuration, and from the front page we can see that the portfolio status is catalog, so people can consume this service. It's visible on the portals, and at the moment we have these particular users subscribed to consume this service. We can of course expand that to a whole company, a department, a team, or anywhere they're in. We can also limit this back to say who can actually support this particular service, and therefore only those supporting teams will be able to work on tickets or see anything to do with those tickets. In this particular situation, as we saw on the self-service portal, this service is currently impacted, so we can set the status in the top right of the service configuration. If we flip across to the request configuration, as we saw on the portal, we can split out each call class with various catalog items. Each catalog item can have its own set of questions and its own fulfillment process. We can even set it up so that it's shown in various different languages if your organization works with different languages. So as I mentioned, there could be a different process, different sets of questions per catalog item, per call class. So it's very, very flexible. Moving across, we saw that we could publish bulletins to the self-service portal. This is to let customers know that there is a particular notification for them, again, just to let customers know that what the situation is with a particular service before they get in touch. We can publish further information to the self-service portal in the form of frequently asked questions, and we can see how many times this has been viewed, liked, disliked, and obviously update accordingly. Any assets that may underpin this particular service can be added and viewed under the Assets tab against the service, and any existing requests that may have been made are under the Request tab. We've also introduced a new feature so that from anywhere in the Service Manager you can see the links or the dependencies for that particular record. So in this case we're looking at the service, the home working service. So we have various different links. In this case we have assets, so the assets that may underpin this service, and we also have the requests that have been logged against this service. If we want to clear down the noise, so we only want to see the assets that underpin this service, we can remove the requests. Oops, we can remove the requests, and we can only see the dependent CIs. In this case there is a bidirectional dependency if they're set, and we can expand them further from there. So in this case these will be the CIs that particular CI is installed on, let's say. So moving back to the service, from there, obviously as I mentioned, all of these services are underpinned by powerful business process automation. And I'm going to flip over to the admin side of things. Again, I'm using Chrome. It's all 100% web-based, so you can access this anywhere, anytime, as Stuart mentioned. And there are a couple of features in here that I want to discuss in a bit more detail. First of all, your fulfillment process. So all of this is graphical, drag and drop, lovely and easy to see what's going on, lovely and easy to set up. In this case, we can have whatever kind of process you want, and as Stuart will mention, as part of the 30-day trial, we'll go through this in detail with you. It's all drag and drop, so from here at this particular decision point, I might want an authorization or an automated task or whatever the situation might be. This particular process takes the form of 4 stages. The beautiful thing about this particular system is that it's non-prescriptive. If you don't want to have a response timer and a fixed timer, you don't have to have a response timer and a fixed timer. If you don't want to send an email when it gets logged or updated or whatever the situation might be, you don't have to. So in this particular process, as I mentioned, we have 4 stages. If I flip over to the second stage, this is a standard change process. We have example processes that come out of the box, so you're more than welcome to tweak these and or just use them if you want, or obviously, as I mentioned, we will go through these with you in the 30-day trial so that you can build your processes into your system. It's very, very easy to see what's going on. In this particular situation, we have an impact assessment, and if the outcome is high or medium, we need a backup plan before it goes down to authorization. All of these features, whether it be decision points, checkpoints, stages, human tasks, automated tasks, authorizations, lots and lots of different options, very, very easy to set up. But most importantly, the complexity is hidden from your end users behind the intuitive heads-up display that's set on the process, against the request itself. So this is to do with the fulfillment side of a request. If I flip back to see the other side of a request is obviously the logging, the gathering of the information. Now we've taken a leaf out of the way people nowadays like to work in terms of booking a holiday online or finding car insurance on a comparison website. Anybody should be able to walk in off the street and book a holiday online without the need for any kind of training. So we've taken a leaf out of that book and we've tried to keep this as simple as possible. Again, graphical, lovely and easy to see what's going on, a decision-based system, so the end user will see one question at a time and based on their answer will branch off down a particular route of this workflow. So in this situation, each blue node is a question, and depending on their answer, the end user may eventually wind up with a finance-related set of questions, a new starter-related questions, or potentially something facilities-related, so whereabouts are you having this particular issue. So what this is a graphical tool to enable you to build a tailored experience for your end users, simply, quickly, and easily. The end point of this is so that you can gather all the information you need to against a particular catalogue item. So in Steve's case, VPN access issue against the home working service. So you can gather everything you need to be able to work on that particular type of request without having to chase Steve or the customer for further information. So we'll have a look at that in a bit more detail. If I flip back to the analyst side of things now. This is our service, and I'm going to flip to our service manager application. Now, everything in this system is context sensitive, so you only ever see what you need to see based on your rights. So in this particular situation, I'm looking at Graham's request list. It's probably a very familiar view for anybody who works on a service desk. So at the moment, these are all Graham's incidents, and again, if Graham didn't have the rights to see service requests, he wouldn't see the icon at all. Nothing is grayed out or unclickable. So in this case, Graham has the rights to see all of the necessary call classes, or he can see all of Graham's tickets regardless of call class. Graham may be a member of various different teams, so if Graham wanted to see all of the change in the change team, he can simply click on that, or if he wanted to see all of the professional services related requests, he can click on that. Alternatively, we can see all of the tickets in all of Graham's teams. So in this case, there are 131 requests. We have quick links for a particular status of request, and we have quick filter in the top left to quickly sort through a long list of information. So if Graham wanted to see all VPN related tickets, we can type VPN in there and we have all the VPN related tickets. If Graham wanted to see all of Brian's tickets, we can type in Brian and there are all the tickets where Brian is the owner. So that's just a quick filter to quickly sort through lots of information. At the same time, there may be a need for a more permanent view. So active high priority incidents. In an IT related service, in fact in most service desk situations, this is probably a very common view. And simply clicking on that will obviously give you the active high priority incidents, but with most service desk tools, it can be complex to set this kind of view up. You may need to know SQL, you may need to know JavaScript, you may need to know where the database is, you may need to know where the data is set so you can filter that. So we try to take that complexity away with this simple clause builder. As long as you know the view you want to see, you should be able to easily build it with this clause builder. So in this case, active high priority incidents, the priority is high, request type is incident, status is open. If I wanted to add in another clause, let's say where Graham is the owner, I can click owner is Graham. Simple as that to set up, and we have the delete button on the right hand side, so it's simple as that to remove as well. So obviously this view will give us the list that we just saw in the background, but at the same time there may be a need to see the same information represented in a slightly different way. So you might want to see where these active high priority incidents are sat by team, or where they're sat by owner, who owns these active high priority incidents, or even better, where these active high priority incidents are coming from in terms of a site. So we can set up these charts based on that particular view. Very, very easy to set up, and each analyst can set up their own views. And what this will give you is a button to see the same information on the request list represented in a different way, in a graphical format. These are personal dashboards. So as you can see, we have many, many different dashboards there, all of which we can move around. We can make bigger and smaller if we want to. And most importantly, if I wanted to see all of the active high priority incidents that start with the first line team, we can click through those personal dashboards, and there they are. At any point, if I want to export this data, we have a button on the top right to simply export the list into CSV format. We can refresh the list at any point, and if there is a particular view that the logged in analyst wants to set as their home view, it's as simple as clicking a button. All of the columns on the request list we can click and sort on, and if we want to add something in or move something around, let's say we want to see the resolve by time, and we want to see that up at the front, it's as simple a case as click and drag and drop. If we are walking and talking and we don't want to see a particular column on our mobile app, we can simply hide that column on a small screen. So this is the request list side of things, and well, in fact, before I go on to the logging of a new ticket, the one thing I did also want to mention is we have the mailbox feature. So this will integrate with any kind of mail server that you may have, and from here we can pick up an email, we can log an email, or we can potentially update an email. We also have autoresponder functionality, which will enable you to automatically log or update an email, or a request, sorry, from an email based on pre-configured logic. So going back into the request list. Now, a common problem we have found over the last 20 years in the service management industry is that there are times when a customer may ring up and you're not sure whether you open an incident form or a service request form or what the customer is calling about, quite simply. So we've addressed that point with the concept of the raise new button. Obviously, if Graham knows it's going to be an incident or request, he can log these based on his rights. But in this case, we don't know. So let's say Steve is calling up. So we can click the raise new button and we say who's calling, it's Steve Robinson. So we type in Steve. Are we talking to the right Steve? Yes. Are you calling about an active request, Steve? If so, here's an update. If not, we hit next. So in this case, Steve is subscribed to many services, as we saw on the self-service portal. If we wanted to go into the catalogue of items, so Mac support catalogue of items, you might be having an issue after an iOS upgrade, we can go into that particular catalogue item and it will ask the appropriate questions based on the progressive capture linked to that catalogue item. If not, if we want to keep it slightly more generic, we can do that as well, in this case with a desktop support service. So we know the service, we know the customer who's calling. So the last thing is, what are you calling about, Steve? So in this case, let's say it's a word printing issue. To keep it simple, I'll say Word. So it's one question at a time. very, very simple. This is exactly the same as it is on the self-service portal for the analyst. This is all based on the progressive capture, and we have the breadcrumb trail on the right-hand side to show you what's been asked and what has been answered. In this case, we know the customer, we know that the service he subscribed to, and we know what Steve is calling about. So at that point, we then have enough information to classify the request type of this particular request. So the decision-based system I alluded to earlier, if we say this is a change and hit next, we're asked to upload a document. At that point, we say, actually, no, this isn't a change, this is an incident. We can press the previous button on the left, or we can flip back on the right-hand side as well. And we'll say, no, this is actually an incident because it's a word printing issue. Hit next, and we're asked a different set of questions because we've gone down a different route of the progressive capture. So in this case, what was this? This was a, let's just say this hardware issue. So categorize the ticket. We're asked to set a priority. Now this is different for the analyst, even though it may be going down the same progressive capture, because as a customer, we might not want them selecting a priority. The breadcrumb trail on the right-hand side, as I say, will give us validation to everything we've been asked and what we've answered. And again, we might want to link the particular CI that Steve is experiencing a problem with against this particular request. So a word printing issue, it might be a problem with his laptop again. But in this case, we can also search through assets that are on Steve's site, or potentially the entire asset database. So if it's a printing issue, it may well be something to do with a shared asset that isn't necessarily linked directly to Steve, i.e. the finance printer. So once we can link multiple assets to the request, as you can see. We have a brief validation, so we've answered everything we need to answer, and then it will come back with a reference number and a brief summary of what we've logged. In this case, again, we've prefixed it with IN, but you can prefix this with whatever you want. And we'll click View, and the first thing we see is the heads-up display across the top to show the analyst what has happened already as part of this process and what needs to happen. So an email has already been sent to the end user. A team has already been assigned, as we can see on the right-hand side there, and a priority has been set, which has given us a resolve by time. The only thing that hasn't happened on that first stage is we haven't allocated an analyst. So the system can actually prompt the logged in user, whoever opens this ticket first, to assign an analyst. So in this case, we're logged in as Graham. Graham has opened this ticket. We just logged this ticket, but Graham is going to assign it to himself. So we'll click on Graham, and as you can see, the process has checked the analyst allocated checkpoint and moved on to the second stage to resolve this particular issue. As part of the process, it's automatically assigned Graham a task to resolve this particular desktop issue. As you can see, obviously everything is automated via the business process. Obviously that's a preset list of actions that will happen depending on your film of process. But we can also set up, there's also a certain amount of manual intervention. So in this case, we can add an update to the ticket, hit update, and everything will go into the timeline on the one page directly beneath the ticket details in chronological order. Not only that, if we want to take a screenshot, rather than having to save a file, upload a file, we can simply paste the screenshot directly in to the update of the ticket there. And again, the customer will be able to see that on the self-service portal exactly as it is, and if obviously you're using a mobile app, it'll be exactly the same on there as well. Nowadays, we have resources that weren't necessarily available to us 10, 20 years ago, i.e. Google, and with the custom button, we can pass variables through from the record we're looking at through to a resource like Google at the click of a button. So in this case, word printing issue, we can pass that through to Google. Can you help at all, Google? Not only that, nowadays people might prefer to watch a video rather than read a long set of instructions or a detailed PDF. So again, exactly the same as Google, we can pass through a particular variable from the record through to a YouTube. I'm not going to watch the video because that doesn't look like the most exciting video, but we can take this video. If we feel this might help our customer, we can take the long URL across the top or the abbreviated URL across the bottom, and just like the screenshot, we can paste that directly into the ticket. You can say, right, Steve, have a look at this video. I think this will solve your problem. And again, we can watch that directly from the ticket. We don't need to click into an external tool, and this will be exactly the same for the customer on the self-service portal. Again, nowadays, Graham in this case, he might be a bit stuck on this particular issue. He might want to get a subject matter expert to help him to see is there anything else we can do, or someone a bit more knowledgeable about this particular issue. So as you can see, we can create a task and assign the task, but we can also drop in a subject matter expert. So in this case, Graham knows there's been lots of stuff going on in the change world. So Rosemary is the change manager. So Graham can add Rosemary in as an interested party into this particular request. Now, Rosemary doesn't normally have the rights to see incidents because she's the change manager. She only works with changes. But because Graham has added Rosemary in as a member, her rights have been elevated to see this particular request. She'll get a notification in a notifications queue. Again, this could be by email or this could be on a mobile, and she'll be able to click in to this request. And just to be sure that she's seen it, Graham can tag Rosemary, can you take a look, update, and that will mean Rosemary has a notification and she can come in and take a look at this particular request. One other option I would like to very briefly mention is in the concept of task, there are various different things that we can do. If we edit this task, let's say this may be going to the networks team, for example. Graham is the owner of this particular request, but he wants to give something to networks to have a look at that he can't access. Graham can come in and add a checklist, and he'll say, right, networks, you need to do these two things, 1 and 2. We'll keep it very simple in this case. Networks will pick up their task, and they'll come in and say, right, we've done one of these 2 things, I still need to go and do the second thing. So rather than Graham having to chase up the network team to say what's happened on this, he can see at a glance a progress bar of exactly how far through networks are with that particular task. There are also various other options that we can do. We can schedule a callback to give Steve a call, say, has this, whatever we've done, sorted out your particular word printing issue. We can attach a file, whether we can drag and drop, or we can go the old-fashioned method and obviously select the file. We can link requests, or we can even search for requests. Let's stick with the VPN situation in this case. We'll search for VPN-related tickets, and we can see all the tickets that may relate to VPN. And if we want to, we can filter that back on the type. So if you want to see a problem, if we want to see an open problem, and again, we can filter it down to the service that it might be related to as well. So from there, we can search, add in a problem, link that, and because there may be a workaround against that particular problem, a new icon has popped up with a solution which is actually the same workaround that we saw on the self-service portal for Steve. So the analyst, again, can be helped based on the information that's already in the system. Obviously, we have standard things. We can send an email, change the customer, assign, add in a connection. It's a relatively new feature, but again, this is very, very similar. This is the analyst version of the Me Too button that we saw on the self-service portal. Rather than having to go log 100 tickets for this VPN issue or this particular known error that we're having, we can simply add in interested parties so that we can see how many people are affected by this issue that we know is having. We can escalate, we can look at the assets, we can add and change the boards this particular request is on, which I will come to very shortly. The solution I just mentioned, resolve, cancel, obviously the Explorer, so we can see any dependencies or links against this particular record, and obviously print. So lots and lots of things that we can do. The boards, as I briefly mentioned earlier, I'm going to touch on now. Now this is a visual representation of any particular area of your business. In this case, this is a change management board. So we split up the boards into the various life cycle stages of the change. So this is a bird's eye view. If a change manager or anybody with a vested interest in change wants to see where all of the changes in the change process are at any particular point in time, you can come in, or they can come in and have a look at this particular board. All of these changes, we can move the tickets along as they go through if you want, but at the same time, the process will take care of it for us. So if we want to see all of the in-progress stages or all of the approved stages at any point in time, the process will have moved that for us. If we wanted to see where all of Graham's tickets are, we can click on Graham and it will limit the view to only Graham's tickets across the entire board. So this is just an example. This is the change management process specifically. At the same time, this might lend itself to a procurement process. Someone wants a new iPhone, for example. Does it get blocked or does it get approved? Once it gets approved, it gets ordered and delivered. Obviously, we have clear colour codes there as well to say this has been cancelled and this has been fulfilled. We use it internally for development here. So in various stages, there is a suggestion. It gets the requirement gets developed and then it goes into the development queue. And we can also use a timing type board. In fact, this is Harry Hornbill popping up to tell us that, as Stuart mentioned earlier, we are constantly updating the system. We have 2 or 3 releases a week. So there are lots of new features going in all the time. We guarantee anything you do in the system will carry on working after any update that we release. But obviously, because there are so many releases, rather than bombarding our customers with lots and lots of release notes and long PDFs with detailed instructions of how to use these things, we have this colourful character, Harry, popping up to say this is a new feature. At that point, you can obviously give it a rating if you want. Oh, that's awesome, I can't wait to tell my friends, for example. Read it a bit later, or say, yep, thank you very much, Harry, I understand. So, as I was saying, in this particular situation, we have a breach board, and we can see at a glance all the incidents that are about to breach, breaching in 2 hours, breaching in 30 minutes, and the ones that have breached. We can see the owners are. So again, if we wanted, we've already talked about Graham, so we'll have a look at Daniel today. Daniel, this one is about to breach, and why is this one already breached? So, as Stuart mentioned earlier, this entire system is built on a collaborative core. So Graham, when he first logged in, we briefly saw this earlier, will get his newsfeed. Now, what's happening here is the information that Graham is interested in is coming to Graham. So in this case, we can see at the top, this particular change has just been approved by the CAB. We have a reference number, and it's to do with upgrading Sage CRM. So Graham doesn't need to go looking for that particular piece of information because it's coming to him. Graham is following this particular incident, incident 93. If I click into that, we can see Graham is not the customer, he's not the owner, but for whatever reason he has a vested interest in this ticket, and so by clicking this button here, any update to this ticket will be pushed to Graham's newsfeed. Scrolling down, we have lots of various bits and pieces. We have a document that's now just been shared with Graham. We have a particular problem, the VPN instability for multiple users. As we already know, there's a problem. People are commenting on this problem, and even though this is in French, I can click on a button, I can see that in my language. People can validate the answers, and people can obviously comment on the answers. Major incidents. So here's a very good example. In this case, Graham is a member of the first line FAQs workspace. If I click into that workspace, James is a member of the first line team, and he is asking a question from two subject matter experts to hope for an answer. As Stuart mentioned earlier, this is the kind of thing that is normally discussed via email or over the water fountain or the coffee machine, for example. It doesn't normally get written down, and if it does, it gets stuck into an email box. In this case, this is an open forum to post images and videos, ask a question, and subject matter expert can come back, answer that question. People can validate that answer, obviously validating the knowledge by saying this is the answer you want, and by doing so, this information is there forevermore. Again, if you are working in multiple languages, you can always work in your native language. This is just out of the box, ready to go. And what I mean by this is here forevermore. If I take a search term from this random post, copy it, paste it into the global search, which is always there in Service Manager, we have 11 search results for Shrusoft VPN. I can then filter that down by the date it's posted. If I wanted to see the last 6 months worth of posts, I can. If I wanted to see where a particular user has posted, I can. A particular subject matter expert, I know that Daniel is particularly good in this area, I can. Or if I wanted to limit it down to the first line FAQs, the workspace we've just copied this from, again, I can. So if I search again, we can see this is the post that I've literally just copied from. That's the Shrusoft VPN there. So as I mentioned, all the information that we are gathering by asking and answering questions in this collaborative method is here forevermore. All of the icons down the left are applications in their own right. Everything, as I mentioned earlier, is context sensitive, so you only ever see what you need to see based on your rights. But as Stuart alluded to in his presentation, this collaborative way of working is tacit knowledge. It's knowledge that's difficult to write down. But we also, for the explicit knowledge, we also have another application, Document Manager. Now, Document Manager, as you can see, is a place for more structured knowledge, PDFs, Word documents. You can even create your own documents if you want. You can collate all of these documents into particular libraries, or if you want to, you can have collections that automatically group together documents based on their keywords or tags. Tags, there are many different ways of finding documents, but obviously you can put a particular tag into the document tag search at the top, or we have a new feature called a tag cloud, which will collate all of the tags against all of the documents in your document manager, and it will show you in this cloud fashion the ones that you use the most are the ones that are the biggest. And you can click into all of these, so if I want to see something to do with the change management process, there is my change management process document. So all of these documents, again, they're collaborative objects, so we can share them with various people, we can give those people different rights, and we can keep everything that's happening in this particular document in the timeline directly beneath the detail. We can keep revisions against this document, so we can keep every version of the document. Again, this will eliminate the need for network shares with many documents, many versions floating around. You're not quite sure if that random document on that random network share is the latest and greatest. Here we can be sure. So we can keep every version of the document, and then we can only publish the one that we want to publish when we're ready. So this is the flip side of collaborative knowledge. This is the explicit knowledge. This is, as I say, an area for preset documents. We have various different applications, which again can all link into the Service Manager application. It's up to you how many or how few you want, but with the whole suite, each one can leverage each other with certain plugins and benefits, so we can get the most out of each application. So in this case, this is a customer manager application, more of a CRM related application, so we can see all of our external customers, all of the organizations, etc., etc. So the last thing I wanted to show you is the reporting side of things. I'm going to very briefly touch on this. We have many levels of reports, but in this case I want to show you the advanced analytics, starting with the trending engine. So this is a visual representation of all of the, whatever you want to get, quite simply. You set a measure, you set a target, and then this will automatically go and gather data against that particular target. Once you have your measures set up, we can put these into widgets, so little bits of information which can make up a bigger report or a bigger dashboard. It doesn't necessarily have to be a measure, it could be any kind of source. And once you have your your widgets, you can put them onto a dashboard, and once you have many dashboards, you can string them together in the form of a slideshow. If I press play on this slideshow, we have 5 different dashboards that will flip through every 5 seconds. As you can see, these are all widgets that we've created, whether it be measures, charts, and this could be above the service desk on a screen, or it could essentially be the base of a meeting. As everything, it's all SaaS, so it is just a URL. So that is everything from me. I'm going to pass you back to Stuart to highlight a few other benefits of the system.
Thanks very much, Connor. Very comprehensive. Thank you. Just finishing off, there's a couple of things that I wanted to just recap and go forward on. We spoke a lot about the product, and Connor covered a lot of good functionality there, but why Hornbill? So I mean, just want to remind ourselves of some of our core values. Very much one of customer first. We're all here developing software, but if we don't develop that software to what customers want and put them first, then unfortunately we won't sell much software. So that's one of our key values. The other one is partnership through collaboration. I mean, yes, of course, we've seen the collaboration through the tool, and very powerful it can be as well. But we collaborate a lot with our customers as well. We have a forum environment where customers can come in, ask us questions, ask each other questions. So a lot of the things that go into the product are based through customers talking to us, talking to each other, identifying improvements that they might want within the product. And finally, It's all about quality and not compromise. Now hopefully you'll agree what you saw was quite a quality looking piece of software. The functionality in there is based totally around quality, so we're trying not to compromise at all on what we deliver. But obviously we deliver on that continuous improvement that we mentioned earlier. So how do we implement this? We've turned the whole kind of marketplace on its head, and we've done something very different. We will basically give you 100% risk-free, a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Now, it's a proof of concept effectively, it's a trial, whatever you want to call it, but what we will give you is the ability to put us to the test. And what that means is that we'll give you 30 days free running on your own instance. What Connor demoed there was on his demo instance. You would have an instance exactly the same for your organisation. You get that for 30 days free running. And hopefully at the end of that you'll understand why most people get to the end of that and actually start subscribing with us. Not only do you get the 30 days free running, you actually get 30 days free implementation. We do not charge for any implementation consultancy at all. So what you've got is your own product specialist who will work with you, who will get you from basically a blank instance to a pre-production server, and you're ready to go at that point. We'll also train you through that 30 days as well. So it's done on a knowledge transfer basis. We'll train up your product champions, your admin people, what you want to call them, and again, that's free. So hopefully you're getting the message here that this is a totally free of charge implementation. At the end of that 30 days, you have a decision to make, and it's quite simple. You can obviously look at that and say, yeah, this will do a job for me. It's 95% of the people have done that already, and they will go on to subscribe. But if it's not one of these situations where it is for you, then you can just walk away. It's a virtual handshake, no hard feelings, no money has changed hands, but actually you've had 30 days of consultancy effectively to get you to a point where you're going to go live. This is very different in this marketplace, and hopefully it's something that's different that we offer. And then just to come on to that, what are the differences? Well, there's very key things. We spoke about this earlier. This is more of a recap. It is a true SaaS environment. It's not on-premise. It's not on-premise solution in the cloud. It is a true service. We've talked about it. No service disruption. You're always up to date. You're always in the current version. All of these painful upgrades go away. You just don't need to worry about them. Again, we've done something slightly different. Of course, we're a software company, and most software companies will obviously increase their prices as time goes on. But what we've given you is a guarantee that you can be priced for life. So what that means is that whichever pay plan effectively that you jump on at the moment, that's what you pay for life. So if you come in at that level now, you won't be subject to any updates in costs or prices as long as you've been a continuous subscriber of that service. So I mean, the end result of that is that when we do increase prices, you effectively are getting a discount over time through effects of inflation. We said we train your admin people and your champions through the 30 days. What we also do is if at any point in time these people leave, we'll train up a replacement. And we'll do that free of charge as well. So not only do you get priced for life, you get trained for life. And we just think that that's a good investment on our behalf, because it's better to have somebody trained to the level that they can administer their own instance than it is for us to try and, field lots of support calls for people who, with the best will in the world, are not actually trained up for the job. So it's an investment on our behalf, but again, you would benefit from that. And then finally, something else that's quite different, we don't tie you in on a contract. We want happy customers, not customers that are contractually bound. So unlike I'll say the word, the service nows of this world, who will try and lock you in for 2-3 years at a time, there is no minimum period here. We don't lock you in at all. It's a simple rolling contract, and you've actually got the ability to terminate for convenience. So in the unlikely event that you get 7 months into your first year of live running and you think, actually, no, it's not for me anymore, you can terminate at 1 minute's notice and no termination fee, and we will actually credit back any subscriptions for the rest of that time period. So we think this is quite compelling. We think it's different. We've kind of turned that marketplace upside down in IT service management, and no risk really on your part, all the risk on us. So that's good. So, how much does it cost? Apparently that looks better in Italian than it does in English, so that's why it says that. But the bottom line is, that's what it says. How much does it cost? Well, effectively, simple pricing plans, whether you're a small team, a large team, it's based on £42.50 per user per month for Service Manager. Now that discount applies, the more users you buy, the cheaper it comes per user per month. So there's a sliding scale. But that's effective entry level is £42.50 per user per month. That's all I was going to cover. Now, there's a lot to take in there. Hopefully that's all good. We will send out the recording anyway, so you'll have a record of what we've covered. But are there any questions? I know we've got a couple that came in on the way through, and I attempted to answer one textually on the way back, but there was one question about can we import data from Snow on a scheduled basis? And the answer to that is yes, we can, because there's actually a script that we published, and it can be adapted for Snow, SCCM, Zotero, basically any asset discovery tool, and you have the ability to create that with your own parameters and schedule that. So that's how you would get that information into Service Manager from an asset perspective. Okay, we got another couple of questions that came in. I know we're good for time. We've got a couple of minutes, so there's a couple here. I'll probably take one, and maybe I'll pass one on to Connor. So somebody's come in and said, well, obviously it's a cloud environment, so where are your data centers? Well, actually, I say they're in Europe. They're actually in Maidenhead, which is in Berkshire. So they're UK based for the data center, but they're all backed up live every so many minutes to an Amazon data center in Dublin as well. So it depends which part of the world you're in, but if you're in Europe, then you'll go for the European data center, which I say is in Maidenhead with Dublin backup on Amazon. But your data would never leave the EU, and your actual live data is always going to be in the UK. So hopefully that answered that question. Someone else asked a question about how easy is it to integrate. We've talked about data import there, but how easy is it to integrate to other solutions? So Connor, maybe you can answer that one, please.
Absolutely. It's very well. We try to keep it as simple as possible to integrate with other solutions. As I mentioned on the self-service portal, it's exactly the same for the admin tool and the analyst side of things. We can set up single sign-on. Obviously, the most common integration there is AD, but obviously any system that supports SAML 2.0, we can integrate single sign-on with. Stuart obviously already mentioned Snow. That'll be exactly the same for any other kind of asset discovery tool as he mentioned. At the same time, if there is something that for whatever reason our existing integrations don't quite work for, which I'll be honest, we try to keep it as open as possible. It does work for most things. We have a fully documented list of APIs and webhooks which you are more than welcome to try and create your own type of integration with. And in the worst case, you can always import just using CSV. We have a standalone CSV import mechanism. So throughout all of those, you should be able to integrate with most things.
And you mentioned the API and things like that as well.
Exactly.
Good stuff. I missed that bit. Thanks for that. So one final question, because we're right on the time zone now, and it's quite a good one. Somebody has actually asked, can you really get this up and running within 30 days? And the answer is absolutely, we can. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, if you've got actually quite minimal requirements, you could be up and running long before the 30 days. It just so happens that we've chosen to give you a 30 days free running. So, you know, because it's cloud-based, we can provision an instance within half an hour, to be honest, and then it's going through that free switch-on process to get you up and running within that 30 days. So yes, absolutely is the answer to that. So we've not had any other questions submitted, so on that basis, I think we're going to call it a quits at that. It's about 11 o'clock, and I'll hand back to Sarah, but thanks, Connor, for your demo, very comprehensive. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor and Stuart, for taking us through that presentation. I hope everyone found it useful. If you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to contact me or your relationship manager. Finally, thank you everyone for your time today. Goodbye.